Right, all the gizmos you need, goodness me. Right, let's have a look at this. So we are in the middle of our series of Renew. Well, in fact, we're kind of in the middle because this is a series that is going to be running till the end of the year. So if you are a regular in church, you will be familiar that we have a theme going on week as we're looking at how we renew our relationship with Jesus, our community life together, our understanding of the Spirit, and the way that we walk with God. And if you're a guest today, today's a perfect day to be here because within this umbrella theme, we have a series of different kind of topics or subjects. And today is a new topic. You're here just at the right time as we're thinking about how we can renew ourselves personally and our relationship with God. So did anyone enjoy that little taste of summer that we had this week? Yeah? Not going to be a pessimist and say that it's over already, but it was lovely, wasn't it? It was lovely to have the sunshine and, I wonder how you're feeling about your summer. Maybe you are a student for whom the summer has begun already. Saw Kirsten this morning back from uni, so welcome back. In fact, Kayla's here. Have you finished your exams yet, guys? You've still got another bit of time to go. Yeah, some people finish exams, some people still in the middle of those. Not that we're jealous, the rest of us who are kind of looking a bit longer to the summer, but for some people, summer has begun already. For others, perhaps you're a teacher who is just counting down the days until the end of term after a really challenging academic year with all the changes post-COVID. Maybe you're a parent who looks into the summer thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to cope with the kids at home, with all the juggling that I've got to do? Perhaps you are a hopeful holiday maker and you had your COVID break cancelled and now you're really hoping that the rescheduling is going to go ahead and you're actually going to be able to get on that plane. There's going to be a plane for you to get on, or you're going to be able to go to that place on the train, or however you're going somewhere. And whether you are going to be at home or away this summer, whether you are going to be with lots of other people or on your own, today I'm talking about a subject that's really important to all of us, and it's the subject of rest. Now, this isn't just a summer thing. Is anybody here feeling a bit tired today? Yeah. Common that many of us would feel tired. And it's the subject that Jesus covered. Actually, and this is an extract from the Message version of the Bible. And Jesus said this: "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest." And then he went on to say this: "Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." And the NIV translation of this passage in Matthew says, "You'll come and have rest for your souls." And I don't know about you, but many of us live lives that are full and are frantic. My heart and mind get very busy. I've had to learn this discipline that when I wake up in the morning, I've often got this to-do list in my head. And my discipline is that I have to look over at Nigel and go, "Good morning, darling," before I start into, "Have you thought about this? And what about that? And what are we doing with the other?" Sometimes I just assume that he's part of the internal narrative in my head and he knows what's going on in there. And so many of us are looking forward to having just time off, maybe a break from work or a break from school or a break from college. But when that happens, we find that we actually come back still needing a rest. Anybody had that? Been away for a holiday and come back and feeling like, actually, I need a holiday? Particularly if you have got young kids. Oh my goodness, I remember those days. Feels harder work to go on holiday, doesn't it, than even to stay at home because of all the stuff you've got to take with you. And at least at home, you know where everything is and what the routines are. And when you go away for your week away or wherever it is, you've got to take everything or find out how to do this or that or the other. And then you've got all the laundry when you get back as well. But in Jesus' economy, we're not supposed to pin all our hopes on this couple of weeks away, maybe in the sun if we're fortunate enough to have that, or some time away from the office. God's plan is that rest and renewal are built into our daily and weekly and annual lives, into our regular pattern with him. And as followers of Jesus, we want to do these things. We've talked about these things many times before. We want to be people who we are with Jesus. We're followers of Jesus who come to be with Jesus. We want to become like Jesus. We want to have our characters and our hearts and our attitudes change so that they're like him. And we want to do the things that Jesus does, whether that is the miraculous and wonderful things, or whether that's just the way that he treats the person who comes in front of him. And so today we're going to be looking at a weekly practice in Jesus' life, which is called Sabbath. Now, it's an ancient practice, and I want to talk to you about how that is relevant today and what it can look like for us. And I'm also going to fill you in on something that you know is coming up if you're part of our church family. Nigel and I are going to be taking a sabbatical in a couple of weeks' time, and we are going to be away from the church family here for 3 months. And so I'm going to talk to you about sabbatical. And then I'm going to invite you to consider how these elements of Sabbath or sabbatical can work for you in your life and in your practices with Jesus. So, as I'm sure you know, Jesus was Jewish, and Jewish people had this regular practice of Sabbath. And it has its roots way back at the beginning. So we go all the way back into Genesis, and I'm in Genesis chapter 2. And it says this: so the creation of heavens and the earth and everything in them was completed. God had been busy. He'd been creating everything that we see around us and more beside. And on the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation, so he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because it was the day when he rested from all his work of creation. And so right back in the beginning, there is this pattern, this principle that God, who knows everything and does everything and has all power and all energy and everything that's required, actually decided to take a rest. And when his people came out of Egypt, you may well know the story, you may know about Moses, who went up the mountain and came back with the rules and the laws about how the Jewish people were to live. He came back with the 10 Commandments. And within the 10 Commandments, there was a law, there was a practice that his people were supposed to follow. Now, they'd been slaves in Egypt for 400 years. As slaves then, they didn't get a day off. They worked 24/7 for 400 years. And this was a really countercultural practice in those days, very unlike what was going on in all of the cultures around them. But God said, you're actually going to have a break. And you're going to have a break not just once and not just a holiday for 2 weeks a year, but you're actually going to have a day every week. And so in Exodus chapter 20, this is what he said. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week to do your ordinary work. But the seventh day is a day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. And then talks a little bit more and then goes on to say, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and everything in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. And so the Sabbath is a day which is blessed by God. It's set aside for rest and for worship. It's not just a day off to do your laundry and pay your bills and to tidy the house, but it's a day to disconnect, to slow down, to separate ourselves from the pressure and the busyness of work around us, and to reconnect with God. And you know, Pete Gazero, who many of you will know, he wrote that book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, which we worked through probably about a year or so ago now. He says it's like having a snow day every week, a day where there are no oughts and no shoulds, but it's just a gift for us to enjoy. Let's just take a bit of a rain check. Is there anybody here who takes a regular Sabbath? You don't have to put your hand up really high. Some people do. Great. Is there anybody here who, as I'm describing this, is looking at me thinking, Joe, you are completely nuts? There is absolutely no way. Thank you for your honesty. There is absolutely no way that I can take a day off every week. There's no way that I can disconnect from my work and the pressures and responsibilities that I have. And what on earth would I do with my children? Have you met them? Perhaps you're thinking those kind of things. And as I'm describing this to you, what I wanted to say is that the principle of rest is one that God has put in place. And this idea of Sabbath, I don't think is a rule or a law that we have to keep. I actually think that it's an invitation to us. My experience is that God doesn't love me any more or any less if I take Sabbath. My experience is that when I put these principles into play in my life in a way that works with my family and the season that I'm in and the work that I'm doing, actually I love him more and I love those people around me more. And people notice. And so please don't just write this off. Please tune in and think about the points that I'm just going to walk through. And then think, how could any of these elements work in my life? What could it look like for me? So I've mentioned Pete Gazero already. This is the fella. Here's a smiley photo of him. And he talks about Sabbath being a time when we do 4 things. When we stop, we rest, we delight, and we contemplate, or another word that we use is worship. And right at the bottom of that slide, it takes you to a website, emotionallyhealthy.org/Sabbath. And he's actually got a little ebook which is free. And so if you want to find out a little bit more, that's an easy guide to look at. And there are plenty of resources online. I know that John Mark Coma, who we'll talk about in a minute, has looked at this. Some of you are aware of him. There are plenty of resources out there if this is something that you'd like to dig into a little bit more. And in fact, let's look at John Mark Coma now. Here's another photo, a nice photo of him. And when he was talking to his church, this is what he said. This is what his aim was for them. The end goal is that you set aside 1 full day a week to rest and worship, and that you thoroughly enjoy this day, learning to delight in God, his creation, and your life in it, calibrating your body and soul to the rhythm of God's Spirit, and then living out of that place all week long. Wow, doesn't that sound attractive? Who fancies calibrating their rhythm, their body and soul to the rhythm of God's Spirit? And so let's hang on to that as our kind of aspiration, the place where we're going. And don't just discount it and think, I don't know where that works for me. But let's think about, are there some ways that you could lean into that or step towards that experience in your life? So there were those 4 things, weren't there? There was stop, rest, delight, and contemplate. And so the first thing is to stop. That's what God did. He created for 6 days, and then he stopped. And that's what we're invited to do. We're invited to switch off from work, whether that is paid work and the emails or the thinking that you have to do for work, or whether that's unpaid work around the house, the bills and the laundry and the looking after, this, that, and the other that needs to be done. Now, of course, there are still things that do have to be done. The children still need feeding. The dog still needs walking. There are things that we have to do every day, don't we? But there are ways that we can plan and prepare just to create space so that we can stop. And so what that looks like for me when I plan Sabbath time, whether I'm just planning like a half a day or a few hours or a full day, then I have to think ahead. And I think, okay, so what are we going to eat that night? Can it be something that's either easy or something that I've already got in the fridge that I'm not going to have to go and buy loads of ingredients for, and I'm not going to spend ages cooking? Because for me, that is work. Whereas for Nigel, he quite enjoys cooking in a leisurely way. And so for him, actually, to do some good cooking on Sabbath is a brilliant thing, and that's something that he would love to do. But for me, I'm just like, no, that's work. Let's get a takeaway or a ready meal or eat a cheese sandwich, whatever it is. I don't want to do the work. And so it takes time for us to think ahead and to prepare. We're almost out of having to wear school uniform in our house because JJ's almost finished his GCSEs. But when we were taking Sabbath from Friday to Saturday, I'd make sure that the laundry was done, kind of whip it off him as he gets through the front door and chuck it in the machine so that we're ready for Monday. Different things, just thinking ahead to prepare. And in fact, the Jews themselves had a whole day of preparation to get themselves ready for this day of rest. If you're going on holiday, it takes preparation, doesn't it? Getting your clothes ready, getting everything packed, making sure you've got all the games and the toys and the books and the things you want. And this is a similar thing. It takes time to prepare. The other thing that it takes, actually, is trust. And this is one of the big things for me, because I actually have to trust that God can manage to run the church. The world will rotate on its axis without my interference and without my taking part in it. And often that is one of the biggest barriers. It might be that we say, actually, I can't step back from my work for this period of time because how would they manage without me? And you may have a job where they really, really can't manage without you. But I suggest actually that most of us have a role where somebody can cover for us, where we can arrange a time where we can be disconnected and not responsible for a chunk of time. And what needs changing is that part of our heart which says, but I'm indispensable, I'm needed, they can't do it without me. And so I just would like to invite you to think just for a moment. So what would it take for you to stop from the work of your day? If you were to choose over the next month to have a chunk of time, maybe a few hours, maybe half a day, maybe even a whole day, what would it take for you to stop from the routine of your work? Think about that for a moment. Is anyone getting excited about it yet, or are you just really daunted? Because these are practical things we have to think about. And actually, if you want to take rest the way that God intends, it's really countercultural. The world around us doesn't stop very much. Everything keeps going. So to actually be a person who says, I'm not going to do that, is quite a way of standing up. It's quite a way of showing that we live differently. So after we've stopped, the next thing, which is wonderful, is that we get to rest. And we can rest from all kinds of things. Pete Gazero in his book suggests we can rest from worry, from making big decisions, from doing errands. For some people, rest from talking, if that's something that you'd like to do. Rest from rushing around, from multitasking. And so for me, really practically, in a Sabbath time, I decide not to think about certain things. So yesterday, Nigel and I had some rest, and we're out for a walk, and he just said, so we're going on sabbatical in a few weeks' time. Have you got a long list of what needs doing? And I said, yes. And he said, so do you want to talk about it? And I said, no, because today is not a day to think about that or to worry about it or to plan it. We're just going to park it today, and certainly we'll go back to it on Monday. So that's some disciplining our thoughts and our heart and our mind to stop and to rest. But the wonderful thing is that this is such a gift, because when we trust that God has got all this stuff covered, that he can take it, it's a joyful thing to be able to stop and really rest deeply. And our invitation is that we can do this not just in 2 weeks a year, but we can do this regularly. And so the next question to think about is, if you were able to rest from all of those things, worrying about stuff and making decisions and doing all the errands, what could you do with that time that would really replenish you? Have a think about that. What is it that delights and replenishes you? So for me, it's things like taking a nap, sleeping in the middle of the day. What a luxury. Or reading a great book, or going for a walk in a beautiful place, or watching a great movie. Different things that I can do when my brain isn't just taken up by all the things that is taken up within the rest of the week. So we've stopped, we've started to rest, and then the invitation is to really delight. That's what God did. God stopped working. He created everything. He looked at it and he said, it is good. And the Hebrew word there encompasses kind of joy, a sense of completion, a sense of wonder, a sense of play. And as grown-ups, how much do we play these days? If you've got little kids, they play all the time. But as grown-ups, sometimes we're just taken over so much by the responsibilities, and we lose sight of the things that we just love to do for us. And perhaps you are a jigsaw person, or perhaps you are someone who play looks like playing sport, or play looks like going to the theatre, or play looks like, I don't know, what does play look like? What does play look like for you? Shout it out. Playing Uno. Yep, great. Anything else? So card games, anything else? Scrabble, brilliant. Anything else? For some people, it's being out in nature, jumping off cliffs. Anything else? For some people, it's ultra marathons. Not for me. But sewing, all kinds of things that almost we sometimes feel like we have to have luxury of time, don't we, to do. And Sabbath gives us time and permission to do things that we delight in and to appreciate God's beauty in creation and in the people around us. For me, on Sabbath, I love to make a really nice cup of tea and spend time savouring it. Yesterday, I sat and read my Bible with a really great bar of chocolate. It was really good. Have you come across Tony's Chocolonely yet? Yeah, there are other brands available, but that is really great. So what is it that delights you? Those are the things you can put into that time. And then finally, the aim of all of this is that our hearts, as we start to unravel, as we start to rest and delight, is that we connect with God, we contemplate him, we worship him. Sabbath is a day not just for us to have a rest, to binge watch Netflix, and to get up again afterwards feeling like, oh, well, I had that day off. Sabbath, or the Sabbath time, is a time dedicated to the Lord. It's holy to him, because the point is that we reconnect with him, that we're renewed in our inner being by him. And that's what gives us the energy and the strength and the power and the grace and the love and everything we need to keep going in the week. And great ways to do that are to be worshipping at church. Come here. If you can set aside a Sunday in a few weeks' time as Sabbath, why don't you say that you'll come to church and worship here? And then maybe in the afternoon you might go home, and whilst the kids are watching a video or doing something else, you could have some time to read your Bible or to study something you thought, oh, I was for communion this morning. What is communion really about? Or what would the Lord want to say to me about that? Or perhaps you just want to have some time in silence, just listening and saying, God, just come and talk to me and remind me how much you love me. Or perhaps you just like to listen to some worship music and have a different kind of music running through your soul so that you can connect with him. We all connect with him in lots of different ways, don't we? And Sabbath is a time for us to do that. I just like journaling. That's one of my things. I don't have the time every day to write in my book, but I do love to, when I'm having Sabbath time, to sit and write my book and reflect on what God's been doing and to look at what he might be talking to me about in the season. So the question would be, how would you love in a Sabbath day to have time to contemplate and worship? What would that look like for you? So those 4 principles are that we stop, we rest, we delight in the gifts that God's given us around us, and we have time to contemplate and worship. And so that kind of leads me with a bit of a gentle segue into the time that Nigel and I are going to be having away from the church family. We've got 2 more Sundays with you, and then after the service on the 3rd of July, we start a 3-month sabbatical period. Now, that has the same principles as Sabbath. We're going to stop, we're going to rest, we're going to take time to delight in God's gifts around us, and we're going to have some time to contemplate him. And we are really aware that this is a huge gift to us. It's something that we had planned and hoped to do before COVID, and it was delayed because of that. And a number of you have very kindly said to us since then, oh, you really deserve this time off. And you know, it's a kind thing to say, but it's actually not the truth. There is absolutely no way that we deserve this time any more than many of you do. We know that some of you have worked your socks off over the past couple of years. You've been on the front line in lots of different services. You've been caring for children at home. You're looking after parents, or maybe you're looking after kids with additional needs. So this is nothing about deserving. We completely see this time that you have given us as a gift, and we are so grateful for it, in the same way that Sabbath is a gift. And within this time, we've had to, in order to stop our work in a couple of weeks' time, we've had to do some of the things I've been talking about. We've taken some time to prepare. And so, as you know, Paul Phillips will be leading the team here. And we introduced you to the leadership team the other day. So there's Paul and Katie, there's Stephen, Mervyn and Claire, Mark and Julie, and Adam and Vicky, who will be kind of taking on leadership of the church family as we're taking our time away. There's also an amazing team of people who are stepping in to do stuff on Sundays. So to talk, do the preaching, and to host. New people leading worship where Nigel would have done that. So a whole host of you have stepped up into different responsibilities to release us to go. And we are so grateful to you. Thank you. Because we're really excited about this time. And for us, although I'm a list person and I love to have plans about what's going to happen, I don't have a big list of what I'm going to achieve in this time. Our main intention is that we can be refreshed and renewed together in our marriage, but also mostly in our relationship with Jesus. That we can have those extended times when we can be with him, not just because we're getting ready for a talk on a Sunday or to lead this or to lead that, but just because he loves us and we love him. And so we really are grateful for that time. We're going to be taking some time delighting in different things. As you know, Nigel's into his music. I like creative writing. We'll probably do some of that. And we're thinking about a particular program that we might follow to connect with Jesus each day. And my invitation to you is, as you think about what we might be doing, perhaps you might think, how could you have maybe even a mini sabbatical in your life over the next months? If you've got some time planned off work, is there a way that you can put in those different elements of stop and rest and delight and contemplate so that your hearts and your souls can be filled up and so that you can be renewed too? It's a really good thing to ponder, to see how each of us as church family, when we get back together in the autumn, are going to have been renewed and refreshed by God in this time. And the last thing that I wanted to say is just an encouragement to you as we go. What does this really look like for you? Well, church is going to carry on meeting and gathering on Sundays with the different people that I've described who've been going to be taking the lead and taking the helm. And I encourage you to come. Although it's the summer, please don't just go, oh, I'm not going to church this Sunday, I'd rather go to the beach. Come to church first, then go to the beach. Come and be part of the church family here. And when you come and you see different people standing up here, sharing their hearts and what they feel like God's given them to share, or leading the worship, or doing whatever they're doing, please would you encourage them? Please will you come and make a point of saying thank you and whatever it is that God has said to you or how you've connected with him. Because people are taking a step of courage to come and do this thing. And so please thank them and honour them as they do that. Something else that I'd love to invite you to do is what you're really good at already, but that's to keep your eyes open when you come here on a Sunday. We have new people coming to our church family every day. We've welcomed some a little bit earlier on. We have visitors who come through because they're just local on holiday. We have other people who are looking for a church family to join. Please keep your eyes open. And when you see people who you don't recognise, just go and say hi. Take them to the Connect desk to see if they want to get connected with us. You know, I was chatting to someone the other day who was new to the church family, and I said, what do you notice? What did you notice when you came in? And she said the most beautiful thing about us, about you. She said, I noticed how kind they were. Isn't that so lovely? Because as she came in, she was greeted by somebody, she was introduced. She looked around and she watched how different people were interacting with one another. And she saw kindness. And I was just like, yes, come on, Lord Jesus. Because we know that people will see Jesus because of the way we treat one another, because of the way that we love one another. And as you know, the Bible says love is patient and love is kind. So when people spot kindness, they're seeing Jesus. So carry on being like Jesus over this time. We'll still have our life groups, some of them meeting up until the summer, and then there's going to be a break. But if you are connected with a life group, then just keep connected with the folk there. And if you're not connected with a life group and you've got a need, get connected with a life group or contact the church office or come here on a Sunday to be prayed for. There are lots of ways to still engage, and church will continue as a family doing the great things it does. And don't forget our Streams of Hope ministry, which looks after people who have some extra needs. You can access that on the website. So, we stand together for a moment.